Welcome into a new Buff Stampede Radio. Adam Munsterteiger, the publisher of BuffStampede.com on the 24/7 Sports Network. And I'm going to be joined by football analyst William Gardner here in a minute to break down the top 10 ranked players on this year's 2023 Top Buffs Countdown. I just wanted to hop on here first and give a heads up that the following was recorded on July 30th. So less than a week after hitting publish, but before preseason camp in Boulder kicked off. I don't know if a whole lot's happened the first three practices at Colorado that would change any of our rankings, but just wanted to throw that out there between Colorado's jump to the Big 12 and preseason camp getting started. It got a little nuts and took a couple days longer than I wanted to get this up, but let's dive into it now. I really am excited to get into this top 10 countdown because I think when we get to the conclusion of this, it's pretty clear that this is the best top 40 list we've had on BuffStampede.com. I'd have to go back and look at 2016 to kind of see how much better this year's group is. Maybe not, right? I guess because you had so many NFL guys on that defense.
But you didn't know that at this point.
Right.
You didn't know that at this point.
Yeah.
And I think there are a lot of those guys that if we'd have talked about them as being draft picks in late July, people would have said, "Well, you're homers, and you're saying that because they were good here, but they haven't done that yet because a lot of those guys didn't do that until that year."
Yeah, Kenneth Olabode, Jimmy Gilbert, they were just actually kind of guys that got flack from the fans a little bit until that year.
And Jordan Carroll was a guy who couldn't make the tackle in the backfield. Missed those tackles for losses.
Yeah, Josh Tupou went through all his stuff. So yeah, it really was the stars aligning, and you can't predict what's going to happen. The prognosticators don't give Colorado much of a chance this year. That over-under is 3.5, and man, when I see that number, that's when I start to feel like a homer because I'm like, there's too much talent on this football team for them to not win more than 3 games.
Right, and the teams that we're playing, they're not all going to live up to their expectations and what have you. And I was thinking about with this top 40 and all these transfers in for Colorado, a lot of them are going to surprise. Some of them are going to surprise because they don't live up to what we expect. Okay, but I'm going to tell you, in 30 plus years of watching this, there are always dudes that nobody expects to do anything who turn out to be superstars. Not just stars, but superstars. And there's some guys, maybe I guarantee you there'll be some guys that didn't make it in our top 40 who at the end of the year we look back and go, "Oh, how did we miss that?"
Yeah. A couple of those defensive linemen I think have got a chance to be that.
Yeah. Well, I gotta tell you, man, I keep watching these videos and Bishop Thomas just kind of grows on me, man. That kid's funny.
It's interesting because our Florida State folks were kind of intimating that, this was a guy that was going to have a hard time getting on the field there, but he was like, he was at least their scout team player of the year and was a guy that, was at least getting accolades from the coaches there. And he's a young guy, he was a guy that was going to continue to develop.
Just a true freshman, wasn't
he? Yeah, he's redshirt freshman now. So
yeah, it's like, so what the hell? He wasn't getting on the field as a guy right out of high school. Throw him out.
Well, let's jump into it. And at number 10 is Giovanni Antonio. He's not a household name. Only I think the folks that do watch the behind the scenes footage this summer would actually really buy into the hype around this guy. But man, he sure looks good in shorts out there the summer. He's a guy that's produced, not at this level, but he got 64 passes last year. So he's at least proven it at the college level, just not at this Power 5 level.
Right. And what's he's like, 6'4", 215, something.
225. So he's bigger than Seydou Traore was as a tight end.
Right. Yeah. And 6'4", 225. And I was just thinking to myself, I was going to ask you this. In probably any of the last 10 years, don't you think he'd be in the top 3?
In terms of receivers?
In terms of players on the CU team.
Oof.
I mean, given his size and speed, and looking at some of those videos where he's kind of toying with some of these really good defensive backs out there.
I think it's just hard to say at this point because you don't want to put too much stock into summer one-on-ones. Keenan Canty used to be an all-star in those settings. So we have gotten burned in the past, but I mean, remember last summer, Jordan Tyson was kind of doing this and he lived
Right.
up to the hype. So Giovanni Antonio having a lot more experience than Jordan Tyson. Obviously, Tyson was
Right.
a true freshman last year, and Antonio's been around, in the college game now. Went to the JUCO level, so he got humbled there. Then goes to
Right.
Northwestern State, really blew up. And I don't know what the quarterback play was like with him there at Northwestern State. I haven't gotten that deep into it, but everything
Right.
we've heard since he's been on CU's campus is that this is a guy that's probably uh, I don't know if he's going to challenge to lead the team in receiving, but I think he's going to have as many big plays out of that position as anybody else.
And I wonder, given his size, he's such a mismatch nightmare. And a little teaser on the rest of the top 10, but you know, given the other receivers on this team, who may be the top, the guy that the defense focuses on, and given his size, he may be the guy in the red zone that Shedeur looks for, because he can just mismatch. Really, whether you cover him with a defensive back, a cornerback, or if you cover him with a cornerback, they're going to be not big enough for the most part. If you cover him with a linebacker, they ain't going to be athletic and fast enough. So you really kind of got one of those situations against this guy as a defensive coordinator or a secondary coach where you got a problem. And what are you going to do about it? Now, I think that given what we saw in spring and summer so far, Jimmy Horn is going to be that first guy that Shedeur looks for out there in the larger field when it's more open. But when the field gets compacted and you get all those 11 defenders in that little area, a dude 6'4" that can jump like this guy is going to be the guy you're going to look for in the corner of the end zone.
And one other thing to point out to justify where we have Giovanni Antonio is the fact that he earned a single digit by staying out this summer. That was something that Coach Prime was pretty clear about. If you've got to really excel to earn a single digit to play in this program under my watch. And Giovanni Antonio is going to be wearing number 4 out there this fall. So I think that says something as well. Doesn't this make you feel quite a bit better about the Seydou Traore thing and just how that didn't work out?
Yeah. And I'm going to, okay, when I say that he reminds me of, okay, don't take and say, hey, Max said blah, blah, blah. Reminds me of Michael Westbrook. He's the same size, same athletic skill package. Watching him out there in shorts, he these guys try to body up on him, and it's a joke, man. They kind of like it's like a little kid trying to push their brother, and brother, like on the basketball court, and the brother just kind of got a hand on their forehead, and it's kind of funny just to see. I don't think people fully understand what it means to have a guy that big running like a gazelle through an open secondary. And we haven't seen that a lot since Mike Westbrook. So this could be very exciting.
Yeah, I mean, you're not saying that Giovanni Antonio is going to be a college football Hall of Famer, but there is a physical side of him that does remind you so much of Michael Westbrook. And of course, Michael Westbrook goes on to have a career in MMA after his football career. Javon has got a little bit of that in his DNA. There's no doubt about it.
And that's exactly what I was thinking, is that physical aspect that Michael Westbrook wasn't just a fast guy. He was a tough guy. He was a quarterback, I think, in high school, if I remember all the way back there in the dawn of time. But Michael Westbrook didn't play like a wide receiver. He played like a linebacker. And he had the size of a linebacker, so it made sense. And I think Giovanni Antonio has a lot of that moxie in him too, and that's going to make a big difference.
Everybody listening can tell we're both pretty excited about him. I think Giovanni Antonio might be the guy that I'm most anxious to see if we're allowed in for any preseason practices.
Yeah, and I think he's a guy in those first couple of games that's going to be a huge shock to some defenses out there. They're going to be like, what the heck? I thought this team was no good. This guy's their third guy? What?
Third or fourth. He could even, if you throw Travis Hunter in there, yeah.
And so you look and I think the defenses are going to come out and they're not going to know what to do with this guy. And I think we've got a smart enough offensive coordinator and a smart enough quarterback that they know that, and they're going to watch for it.
Just one last point here, and then we'll move on. I'm about to get yelled at here at the next one based on our voting. We've overvalued the receiver depth at Colorado quite a few times in like the last 20 years, right? Now in 2016, they lived up to the hype, but generally that position hasn't produced quite as much as what our preseason expectations were on a pretty consistent basis. But when you look at Travis Hunter and Jimmy Horn Jr., Xavier Weaver, what they did, what Travis has done when he's been healthy. I mean, he was not healthy last year at Jackson State, but what Horn and Weaver did at UCF, USF, and then what Giovanni Antonio did, it feels like it's going to be good depth this year as opposed. Like I just don't see this as a situation where they're not going to live up to the hype.
Well, there's two things. First of all, these guys are proven at the college level. They have they've all had success at the college level. Maybe not all Power Five, but they've proven that they can play against older guys and actually produce. And even more importantly, we got an offense. I mean, you can't judge. I am sorry, but you can't judge any receiver playing in the crap we've called an offense the last 4 or 5, 6 years, because it's been garbage and it hasn't been well designed and hasn't been well called. And we haven't had the other weapons out there to use, and we haven't had a quarterback. We haven't had a quarterback who can really throw the ball. Well, let's not dive down that hole of stuff, but I think we got a quarterback
good veering away from that. I think we all just get depressed when we think back to I mean, especially the last 2 years. My goodness.
Right. And so I think our offensive coordinator now is first rate, and he's got an offense that works and opens the field up. And, and this may sound counterintuitive, but the fact that this is a run-first offense is going to make things easier for the wide receivers, because they're going to try to stop that run game and move things up. And that's going to let some of these speed guys we got get behind people. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
Today's episode is brought to us by Macaulay Capital Fractional CFO Services. Is your business looking for financial guidance and support, but not yet big enough to hire a full-time CFO? Well, we have a solution for you. Hiring a fractional CFO who can work with your business on a part-time basis. You get the benefit of having a seasoned financial expert on your team without the commitment or expense of a full-time hire. And here's the best part. It's likely that a partnership with Macaulay Capital will be a win-win situation, meaning that your business will make more money from the guidance of a fractional CFO than the total cost of partnering with us. For more information or to set up a meeting, please visit MacaulayCapital.com. That's MCCAULEY Capital.com. All right, number 9 is offensive tackle Jared Christian-Lichtenhan. I had him ranked 23rd on my list. William, you had him at 5th and Brian at 6th. So clearly I am way off in terms of my expectations for Tank this year. And it's not that I don't like Tank. I guess I just want to see a little bit more of it on game days. He was pretty good last year, and his progression has been very linear. It seems like every stretch of practices going from spring ball to the next camp, he's gotten substantially better, and that's just continued on. And kudos to Chris Kapilovich, because this was not a popular commitment when he took it back in the 2020 class. Tank, he came from a little bit of a smaller area in Northern California where just not a lot of recruiters go through, Davis, California. So he didn't have any other Power 5 offers. So Coach Cap had a very short tenure in Boulder, but man, he was a really good offensive line coach. And this is one of the gifts, I guess, he left behind when he went with Mel Tucker up to Michigan State.
Yeah, and I think I said everybody's missing the boat on Jack Wilty, but I think everybody's really missing the boat on Jared Lichtenhan. And I guess it kind of surprised me because he was pretty good last year, and he got better as the year went on. By the end of the year, he and Casey Roddick were pretty dominant on that left side. And I know the knee-jerk reaction is, hey, our offensive line was no good, but they were actually fairly decent last year. The offensive line was not the problem on that offense. And Jared Lichtenhan on the left-hand side, he and Roddick were pretty dominant towards the end of the season. And he got better, and his pass protection was better. And watching him out there this summer, Bill O'Boyle's really had an impact on him. But and again, it's hard to say what this means, but Lichtenhan was dominant in spring. He was dominant in spring, and both in the run game and pass game. Now, I don't know what that means. Does that mean the guys across from on our team in spring weren't any good? Well, a lot of them aren't here anymore, so who knows? But all I know is that everything I've seen from Jared Lichtenhan in the last 12 months tells me, and I'm going to go ahead and say this, he's a draft pick. He's an NFL draft pick because, the NFL's funny. And when it comes down to draft day, your measurables often mean more than your film. Not that they don't look at the film, but there ain't nobody out there who's an offensive line coach in the NFL that isn't going to drool over this guy's measurables because he looks like Nate. He looks like Nate Solder. He's not going to freaky, crazy athletic guy like that, but his height and his length and his ability to do things. Now, I was watching one of those videos the other day, and they were working outside and one-on-one techniques, and he's really refined his technique, and he did this really nice. He was doing a pass rush against a speed rush. He did this really nice inside punch and then an outside punch. And I know that doesn't mean anything to anybody else, but it means a lot to me because that's how you put a guy off balance. You hit him with this one, and you just knock him a little bit off, and then you jack him with that one, and now you've got him, right? And I had not seen that because everybody else and that was a high level move. That was a high level little trick, and he probably picked that up from somebody coming around like a Nate Solder or somebody saying, "Hey, look, you do this first," and then he's refining his game. And I'm going to tell you, this guy, Jared Lichtenhan, is going to play in the NFL, barring injury, for a long time. So I said it and write it down. And I just think I just think that the guy is easily one of the top 10 teams, and he may well be one of the top tackles in the conference.
I think, and I don't want to be mean towards Frank Phillip because he's a great young man and he's really bright and he's got his degree and he's going to do really good things in life. But I think this kind of shows you the difference between an offensive tackle that loves the game of football and one that we talked about this on the podcast before, William. You've coached guys that they just don't need the game, and it's harder for them, especially when you talk about a trench player, because some of those practices just aren't going to be. Most of those practices just aren't going to be fun. Yeah. So it's got to be in your DNA that you just love the game of football. And I've gotten that vibe with Jared Christian-Lichtenhan. He has usually a smile on his face, and he seems to be a guy that generally enjoys being out there with his teammates.
Yeah, I think he's in his own skin, and he's grown in. I think he was a guy early on, didn't know what to do with being 6'10". Okay, that's not a natural height for a football player, period. Right, you're supposed to be playing center at that height, and I don't know if he knew how to use his body. And I'm gonna go back to this too. In defense of Frank Phillip, man, look at the coaches. Look at the tomato cans they put up to coach these guys, because it's ridiculous and it's a malpractice, and somebody ought to sue somebody, quite frankly. Because I don't know, I don't know Frank Phillip, and I don't know whether he lost his interest in the game because he, had people coaching him that had no business coaching him. But these guys did not get developed, and now they're getting developed, and they're both in the weight room. The weight room stuff is fantastic. And now I think also, I think Frank Phillip thrived having a guy like Casey Roddick next to him. And I think he thrives having now a guy like Tyler Brown next to him, right? And you're surrounded by all these guys, and it just, you look at the vibe of these workouts, and it drives you, and if you're a competitor, man, you feed into that, and you go a little bit crazy, and you get extra work, and you do it hard. But I was watching Jared Lichtenhan in one of those videos, working with, there's a young tackle on the squad that he just sort of appeared out of nowhere. He's 6'6", 295. I can't remember his name, and I don't know where he came from, but Lichtenhan was coaching him, and it's like, no, get your back up, get your hands in here, and it's like, that is a higher level of both confidence in your own game and your knowledge of the game that he's becoming a coach on the field. And I think he's going to be one of the dominant offensive linemen, and I think a real leader on this team in terms of the work ethic. And he brings sort of that. I've been in Boulder for a while, stability to this new group of guys, and he's kind of like a post you can hitch, tie your boat to, I guess. Or I'm raving about the guy because I think he's fantastic.
Well, he is the top ranked returning guy. There's not a whole lot of returning guys, obviously.
Yeah, well,
That's been discussed ad nauseum, but this is the top ranked out of all those returning guys.
yeah, and I think he belongs there, and he's going to prove that he deserves to be there. And by the end of the season, he may be a guy we look at and go, oh, he might have been higher.
It does feel like most of like the guys that go on to play in the NFL from the offensive line at CU, it feels like they're all like 2 or 3 star guys, doesn't it? Ryan Miller had a little run in the NFL, but man, Colorado, as bad as they've struggled at times the last 20 years, they've found some pretty darn good under the radar offensive linemen.
Well, I think, and I haven't looked at see what rating of offensive lineman gets drafted, but I think that, and this is a theory I've developed over 10 or 15 years watching this whole process. I think that the guys that are highly rated as offensive linemen coming out of high school got big earlier, and they developed a little bit earlier physically. And a lot of those guys, I think, were at the top of their curve. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And they didn't get a whole lot better as they got into college. And so the guys that end up being fantastic, I think it's very hard to project. Like you take a guy like Travis Hunter, right? And you can see what he can do. Okay. But if you're a 17-year-old guy and you're 6'6" and you're 280, it's not entirely clear what you're going to be in 5 years from now in terms of how big are you going to be and how tough are you going to be? How hard are you willing to work? And like we talked about, how much do you want it in this game? And so I think you find a lot of these guys like a David Bakhtiari, man, everybody missed on him because one thing, he was a year younger than everybody else. And number two, nobody had any idea, A, that this guy was so well coached in technique in high school, and B, that he had a drive and a work ethic second to none, right? Nate Solder was a tight end, and nobody could have figured that he would fill in that tall, lanky frame, from 240 up to 310 and be what he ended up being. So I think you see these kids come in as offensive linemen and they really develop. And 5 years later, they go from being, maybe sort of a goofy looking tall kid from high school to being the Hulk, right?
Yeah.
And it's a whole, and you just don't know. I think it's the hardest position on a field to project, but I also think it's the one position on the offense on the team where development means more than anything at any other position. You can develop, you can take a decent 2 and 3 star guy. David DeCastro was a first-round draft pick out of Stanford, and one of the top guards in the NFL for years. He was nobody in high school. He was just run-of-the-mill 3-star, right? But they developed him. They had the program at Stanford at that time, and they turned him into a monster. He had that mentality. And I remember seeing an interview with him, and he said, look, I wasn't the most athletic or the biggest or strongest or whatever, but I was not going to let anybody move me. I was just not going to let anybody move me. And that's in here, and you can't see in there, right? Until you get out here and they're carrying those weights up and down in a 90-degree temperature, and find out whether they can do it or not. You just don't know.
Yeah, I've always thought that O-line is the toughest position to project future upside, or if they have maxed out like you described there. And then defensive line, I think, is the hardest to recruit because there's just not a whole lot of really athletic defensive linemen across the country year after year. So quarterback would be the other one you could kind of debate in terms of it's pretty tough to project quarterbacks when so many of their offers are coming from just throwing the ball in shorts, and you really don't get to test those guys until they have 300 pounders rushing at them at the college level.
Right. No, nobody in high school is thrown against a Travis Hunter secondary. Nobody in high school is facing a Jordan Dominic coming off the edge. Nobody. And so you don't know the quarterback. Can they see the field? Okay. And you don't know that until you throw them out there in college, because they're not going to see defenses like they do in college until they get here.
Yeah. All right. Up to number 8. And this is where linebacker Lavanta Bentley comes in. We were very close with our voting here. I had him 9. William, you had him 11, and Brian Howell at 12. I mean, this is I wouldn't say a throwback, but this is a true middle linebacker type guy, 6-foot frame, compact, really impressive tackles per snap ratio at Clemson, but one of these guys that had some really talented players in front of him that he just didn't get the opportunity there like he's expected to at Colorado.
Yeah, and he's the word that comes to my mind, he's a thumper. He's a guy that's going to hit you, when he comes through there, he may not have the instincts and all things that a Nate Landman has. That he's that kind of a linebacker in terms of hitting people, and he's got the weight and the size ratio to really be a hitter. And I think he's a leader of a defense from the center in the middle. And I think given the opportunity to play a lot here, I think he's really going to show things. He's certainly been a leader in the whole off-season workouts and what have you. There's no doubt about what he's shown us there. But he and Jamoy Kennedy I think are going to be as good of a pair of inside linebackers as we've seen in a long time at CU.
Yeah. Do you think Bentley will prove to be better than Josh Chandler-Semedo was last year?
Yeah, significantly.
That's what I think as well. He's got more athleticism to his game.
Right, and he's bigger. Significantly bigger, actually. And then he also, people say, "Oh, he hadn't played all that much." Well, let's face it. Clemson, Alabama, and Georgia, they are so loaded with talent that really good guys can get off the bench, play there. And so not only, but you're coached by the top level of coaches in the game. You're playing against the top level players, even in practice, and so. He's not going to see anything in Pac-12 that he sees something better in practice at Clemson. So I think he's ready to go, and I'm very interested to see what Kelly does with our defense. These guys, I think he's a guy you can sit him right in the middle, and then you can do things with your other linebackers and have them around, what have you. But I think he got you sit him right in the middle, and you say, "Stop the run, man."
Yeah. And he's carried himself like a starter since he got on campus. He's exuded a level of confidence that's been pretty impressive.
A leader. I think, again, that comes from being in a championship program. And from the first minute you up on camp at a place like Clemson, you expected to act in some way because we win championships here. Okay. And that's you learn that, you carry it with you, and you're expected like that to fight for what you get. You kill it. If you can't kill it, you don't eat. And he brings that to this group and has been a leader throughout, and that's what you want in your middle linebacker, to be a leader of your defense.
He'll be wearing number 20 out there this year, so I'm getting to that point where I'm trying to start to memorize these numbers. Otherwise, it's going to be kind of head spinning when this season finally kicks off.
Right. And he's one of the guys that I've learned to recognize his face and in the videos and stuff too. So I know who he is. And he's fun to watch. And he's, the guys are joking around, messing around. He seems like a very serious person to me. And I have not met him, but he's always like, "Oh, okay, that's funny. Yeah, but let's get back to work." He seems like a serious dude,
One guy that likes to have fun is number 7, and that's receiver Xavier Weaver. I had him at 4 on my list. William, you had him at 7, and Brian at 11. He's going to wear number 10 for the Buffs this year. Super productive at USF. I mean, 53 catches for 718 yards and 6 touchdowns. That's a pretty good stat line there. In fact, it's the 5th best receiving season in USF history.
Yeah, and I think it's funny, we're all excited about Jimmy Horn, and rightfully so. And Weaver actually had a bigger season last year, and he's a bigger guy. So I think he's a guy, we talk about how will this receiver room play out, but man, these coaches have gone out and found guys that they could work with and that they could do things with, and given Shedeur Sanders some real weapons here. So I don't think that there'll be any difficulty in these guys finding some open spots in the field and making some plays because they've already done it for the most part.
And to lump Xavier and Jimmy Horn in together, I think you also mentioned the fact that both those guys have they've just fit in really well, and they've connected with the Sanders and Shador, and it seems like a really natural fit for those guys working together. Whereas, that's one of the biggest concerns with this football team is how quickly can they gel? Well, you look at, that connection. I mean, it was really from the jump in spring ball because Shador and Jimmy Horn had put so much effort in the winter months that it stood out from the jump. And I would kind of expect that to be the case with Weaver now that, Shador and him have had this whole summer working together. That's part of the reason Shador Sanders didn't go to the Manning Passing Academy, is because he said, I need to be around in Boulder to get chemistry with these guys.
Right. And I think Weaver and Jimmy Horn have been out on the field together and run down the field together, and that can help too with their chemistry. And they bring a little bit different skills to the game. Weaver's a little bit taller at 6'1", so he's a matchup guy. You can put him out there in different situations. And so I think they both bring a lot of that chemistry people are talking about to this team. I don't think that's going to be as big a problem as some people think it is. People talk about, well, can the offensive line get chemistry? Well, that's a thing every year. I mean, you look at 2016 and 2017, we returned 4 out of 5 starters on the offensive line, and a 5th guy who had been a starter and played a lot. Met 2017 offensive line stunk. There's no guarantee in anything just because the guys have played together before, or if they haven't played together before. So, but I think like you say, Weaver's another one of those guys. It's like, I saw an article, they call them glue guys, and they kind of glue a team together because they're, you're out there busting your hump. And if you're out there in that 90-degree heat and you're all working hard and all you got a bunch of guys going, oh man, this sucks. Well, that just makes it worse, right? And you got a bunch of guys out there like Jimmy Horn and Xavier Weaver cracking jokes and making fun and teasing you and whatever. It's, before you know it, it's all done, right? And you just had fun.
There you go. I think my feeling on leadership is that if you have great leadership, it can really help a football program take that next step. Again, right. We always use 2016 as the example around here for that. But just because you have good chemistry doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be a good football team, because there wasn't bad chemistry on Colorado's football team last year, and they were absolutely awful. So I think in some instances, leadership can kind of be overrated. It's like that saying, everybody's got a plan until they get hit in the mouth. It's like you can't even know if you're going to have good team chemistry until you face adversity during the season. And so,
well, and I would separate leadership from chemistry and say that they're two very different things. And chemistry is how well you work together and click together and do positions mesh together. Whereas leadership says, we're going someplace, and you're either going to go with us or you're going to get the hell out. And it's not always, in those negative terms. Sometimes it's, let's go, let's get this done. And so I think what you had in 2016, more so than chemistry, was leadership. You had guys on that team that, regardless of what the coaches did or didn't do, said, we're going to win. We're done, and we're going to get this thing, and we're going to make this thing happen. And I think we got guys like that on this team too, who have no intention of, I just look at the guys out here on the field and the leadership I see, and I don't see guys who are going to settle for getting beat and losing, and so I just think that people don't have a really good feel for what this team is, and a lot of the silly, stupid predictions, like 3 wins, that's just silly, stupid. That's just not paying attention to what the hell's going on here, and that's just looking at last year and saying, oh well, that team sucked, they must suck this year. Well, there is almost nothing about this team. Well, there is nothing except for the colors of the jerseys that's the same as last year. And part of that is the leadership that a lot of these guys bring. And everybody came here because they wanted to be part of something special, and everybody's bringing something to that.
And one more guy that arrives with a sense of urgency and a lot of proven production already at the college level, and that's number 6, edge Jordan Dominic. I had him at 5th. William, you had him 10, and Brian at 4. This is the top edge player on this year's countdown, which makes sense. I mean, he tied for 3rd in the SEC in sacks last year.
Yeah. And I think there's two sides to that story too. Some people have rightfully pointed out that he got a lot of his sacks against lesser teams, but he's clearly shown that he can be competitive at the highest level. You know, um, he was at Georgia Tech, so he's played at the ACC as well, and he's had quite a few years of high level um, competition and work. But he's also a guy who understands that it's his last chance. And he's got a real shot, given what he's already done. He's got a real shot to get himself drafted if he can really do something this year. And he knows he really has to stand out. He's not the automatic. Again, the numbers that the NFL is looking for. He's not going to blow the lights off on combine day in any category. He's got everything he needs, but he's not 6'5". He doesn't have that super long reach. He's not the super fastest guy ever, but he kind of puts it all together and is a very, very solid, competent pass rusher. And I think you got to have that lead pass rusher before anything else. And I think he's probably that guy.
And the fact that they also have Derek McClendon and some other guys that might prove to be pretty good players in there. We've heard Charles Kelly speak highly of Savell Smalls. You've got Jeremiah Brown that played on the edge quite a bit when he was at Jackson State. It's not going to be all on Jordan Dominic to create the pass rush. And so I think if that was the case, then if you're the other team, you just game plan for him and you chip him with running backs and tight ends, and you kind of take him out of the mix a little bit. But I don't think you're going to be able to do that. Even throw Shane Coax in there as a guy that we're going to talk about here in a minute that's going to be able to provide some pass rush up front.
Right. I was going to say the next guy we're going to talk about is a guy that also feeds into that too. And there's a lot of different guys, and you can put guys on either edge. It's easy to game plan. Like, if you got a dominant, if you got like, look at 2016 again, right? When you had Jimmy Gilbert on one side and the other guy, Legacy, geez, I'm blanking. I'm getting old. The other outside linebacker that year who got hurt against Michigan had a touchdown.
Derek McCartney.
Yeah. Right. And when you had Jimmy Gilbert and Derek McCartney, you didn't know what to do because Derek McCartney was as much of a weapon as Jimmy Gilbert. And then the defense changed significantly when Derek McCartney went down, and they had to go to a whole different thing. And to their credit, the defensive coordinator that year, Mr. Pepsi, made a really great adjustment, going with a defensive back instead of an outside linebacker type. And so when you have that guy on the opposite side that you got to account for, it makes it easier for the pass rusher guy, Jimmy Gilbert, in that situation, to be a pass rusher and get things done. So in this team, when you've got guys like McClendon or Smalls or whoever ends up being that opposite guy, that's going to make things easier and better for Dominic too. Because Dominic's a little bit, he's a little reminiscent of Gilbert. He's a lot thicker, but he's more of a pass rush type guy than a hand in the ground, stop the run guy. So you've got other guys that can sort of fill, and that's the same as 2016, where Derek McCartney was a bigger, stouter. I go all the way back to the early '90s when you had Alfred Williams, who was that super athletic guy on one side, and then you had the big, huge, stout, power stop the run guy in Canavis McGee on the opposite side. So it makes a huge difference.
Well, yeah, that kind of segues us then into Shane Coax at number 5, who, again, we have pretty high on all of our list. And I expected him to be a pretty decent player, William, but I was pretty surprised at just how good he was coming in from the Ivy League ranks. Some of those guys really struggle to make that jump, but he, from the beginning of spring ball, was their best defensive lineman, and that's continued throughout summer.
Yeah, and I think it's not just a factor that he's the only one. I think there's some other guys in there that got some talent, but I think Shane Coax is a guy people write off, A, because he came from Dartmouth, and B, because he's not a 310 pounder. Everybody talks about, well, where's those 310 pound lane clogging guys? Well, you know what? Whatever, man. The guy he reminds me of in recent CU history is Mustafa Johnson, who was kind of in the same mold physically, size-wise. I think Shane Coax is significantly bigger than Mustafa, but has that same athleticism and length. And he's going to be a problem for offensive lines because he is not a guy that the average offensive guard is equipped to handle in terms of athleticism.
Yeah.
And so people say, well, those 310 guys will just swallow him up. Well, they won't get his hands on him because he's that quick, and he's got those long arms, and he's got really good hand technique to keep people's hands off of him. And so he's a guy who, Jordan Carroll's another one where you're going to see him in the backfield a lot because he's just too quick out those first couple steps for the average lineman to handle him. So he can give us an inside pass rush, and if we get, when we get into an obvious passing down, we spread things out a little bit. He's one-on-one with a guard. Most of these guards aren't going to handle him one-on-one on a pass rush because he's just too quick. These guards are. It's a whole different beast to go against a 310-pound guy who's not as quick but is super powerful, and then you switch up to this guy. And in defensive line terms, put it in boxing terms, he's like a boxer versus a puncher. He's an artist, he's an athlete, and I think he's going to show really big things this year. And I think he's going to provide an element to this defense that people are not expecting at all.
Yeah, we knew that Shane Coax coming in from Dartmouth was going to be a really smart young man,
right.
But not every smart person is a good communicator the way that Shane Coax is. And I was really impressed the first day back for the spring semester when he got up there. And I think, some of the other guys that are leaders on this team were we're having a harder time searching for the words where Shane Coax went up there, and you could tell he's such a natural leader.
Right. And he's got that it factor, and he's another guy who's at the end of his line, man. He's not an obvious draft pick kind of guy, and he knows he has to do something at this level. And he's got a little chip on his shoulder too, because he's an intelligent guy. And I know he feels like people are downplaying him a little bit because he comes from the Ivy League, and people think, well, they're all a bunch of smart nerds, but they are not athletes. And I think he's on a mission to prove something that he can play this game at the highest level. And I think he's going to be one of those. I think he's going to be, obviously we think highly of him, but nobody outside of Boulder knows Shane Coax. And I think he's going to shock the football world. He's going to be, if you were to say to me, pick that one guy on defense who's going to shock the football world, this is the guy right here. Because nobody, first of all, for the most part, people don't know anything about defensive linemen until they do something. But Shane Coax is going to come out, and he's going to show people right from game one what an athletic defensive lineman can do. I think he's going to give us what I had hoped to see from his last year from Mustafa Johnson, who never quite came back from that knee injury. And I think we're going to see Shane Coax become that guy.
All right, up to number 4 on our top buffs countdown is running back Alton McCaskill, the 4th. William, you and I had him at 6th, Brian at 3. The only question here is, has he been able to get all that rust off? Because he missed last year with a torn ACL. I mean, you look at the numbers he put up as a true freshman at Houston, 1,100 yards of offense, 18 touchdowns. And you turn on the film, this is a pretty special talent as a running back, and was one of the top 10 running back transfers this winter. I've said it before, and I'm not trying to say that he's going to be Adrian Peterson in terms of a career, but his running style and size and all that just reminds me so much of Adrian Peterson's film. And like Peterson, McCaskill's from Texas, so there's a lot of similarities there. He's got good but not elite speed. He was like a 10.9 guy in the 100, so that's really fast, but it's not, that 10.6 blazing guy. So I love his film a lot, and I can't wait to see what he produces, assuming that he has, fully recovered from that injury.
Yeah, and a lot of the best guys in football history at running back have not been the super blazing speed guys. It's not the position that's about speed. It's about vision and balance and change of direction. And it's more about instant acceleration in the first 2 or 3 steps. It's like, can you see the hole in the first place? And believe me, that's where most of them fail. Daryl Scott, man, that guy is like he had a magnet that drew him to an offensive lineman's butt, man. It's like that's the kind of guy you hate to coach an offensive line for, because I don't care where I block my guy, you're going to run into my big fat butt.
Yeah.
Damn, man, open your eyes, dude.
Whereas Speedy Stewart was the complete opposite, right?
Yeah, right. Just jitterbug, and there it is, and see it. And Eric Bieniemy was that guy. It's like he could just see those holes, and I couldn't do it. It looks like a jumble of dudes to me, but that's why it's a special skill and a special talent, and clearly McCaskill has it, and he's done it at a high level, and his size and speed and everything else, and I think that the nice thing too is that he doesn't have to be the only guy in that backfield, because he's got some other companions that we've already talked about, that give us some real different options and things that we can do in that offense. But I think he's going to be he's another one that you look at and you go, 3 wins, man. Are you sure? You seem kind of stupid when you say that. And you look at guys like this.
Well, just the fact that Anthony Hankerson might be 5th on the depth chart at running back, I'm not putting that in pen. He's certainly got a chance to not be that. But I think as you look at things right now, you'd probably say because Savion Wilkerson has played a lot of football for Coach Prime, and Pavossier Smoke is more experienced, and McCaskill's got a lot of talent, and Dylan Edwards was dynamic this spring. That's a good problem that Coach Flea has, I think, at that position.
Yeah, and I think when we talked about Wilkerson, I think I had Wilkerson rated the highest of anybody. I didn't think I had him as high. I don't think I had him as high as I had McCaskill, but I think he's a guy that's going to, again, also really surprise the Buff fans and the nation too, because he's just, some guys got it, and both of those guys got it.
And we didn't even mention Charlie Offerdahl, and that's obviously Coach Prime's guy. You can just you can see that. I think Coach Prime's going to want Charlie to have a few opportunities out there on game day.
Well, and you take a guy like that, and he's got heart and leadership, and if you can get people to work the way he does, who've got talent, then they're going to have something. But you look at the running backs on this team, and you got to go back to 2001 to have 3 running backs on a CU team like the guys we got in the room this year, with Smoke and McCaskill and Wilkerson, and all 3 a little bit different. Like McCaskill is probably out of those 3 2001 guys, he's probably your Chris Brown with his size, and I think Wilkerson's maybe more like Bobby Purify, but these 3 guys bring, and then I don't think we didn't have a home run hitter like who's the young kid, the freshman,
Dylan Edwards.
We didn't have a home run hitter like Edwards. We didn't have it that year. Not a running back. Where Dylan Edwards, you put him in on 3rd down when they're expecting a pass, you hit him in the flat, he's gone. So a lot of weapons.
Before you can even blink your eyes, he's gone.
Right. Except you'll be hearing him all the way down the field. You'll hear him chirp, 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 chirp. So, and I know we're not talking about Edwards right now, but man, you see that kid squatting? Holy crap!
Yeah.
Holy squatting! If I'm pinned under a truck, I hope he's there.
Yeah. That segues us into number 3. Jimmy Horn Jr. was standing out, in terms of some of those, the max day that they had before they broke for a brief break before preseason camp. And I'd imagine there's going to be a few people that go, how could you and William have Jimmy Horn 4 spots higher than Xavier Weaver? And I'll admit, it might just be simply the fact that I saw Jimmy Horn run through 15 practices. Well, they weren't all open, but I got to see 3 open practices, and he stood out big time each one of those. So there might be a built-in bias there that will change once I get that same experience watching Xavier Weaver. I don't know, but I just know I've been able to see Jimmy Horn more at CU at this point.
Yeah. And I think that's, we talked about from the start of this series about how, we don't have a lot of experience watching some of these guys. So a lot of it's about projecting what we think is going to happen. Well, Jimmy Horn Jr. is one of the ones we have seen a lot of. And even before spring ball, we saw a lot of videos of him out there working against defensive backs and working with Shedeur Sanders. And Jimmy Horn Jr., man, he's got that it factor you could be a great player and not be a star. I don't know if that makes sense. If you follow me on that, Jimmy Horn Jr. is a star. That's a dude, and it's not like he's searching out the camera, but he's like Prime, man. He's like, when the camera hits him, the electricity comes on, and he just makes you smile because he's always got, and he's not a jackass, I mean, he's got intelligent things to say, and he's got funny things to say, and he backs it up on the field. And I think he's the kind of guy who has success, and you're happy for his success because he's a happy dude and he makes you feel better. And you need those guys on a football team because it's a drag sometimes, And so if you got those guys, they're in the military, we call them force multipliers, where he brings more out of guys around him just because of his attitude. He brings more to the field than just his skills, and his skills are prodigious, man.
And it's got substance, because when you don't just see him dancing, you also see him when they're running stadiums, being the first one to finish it, and then trying to get other guys to pick up their pace a little bit. And so it's pretty impressive what he's done in terms of building up expectations this quickly. When he met with us this spring for a media scrum, there was, I don't know, maybe 20, 25 reporters there. He couldn't have been more comfortable in his own skin. They're like, he was in his element talking to us. If folks out there listening to this haven't seen it, just go on to YouTube and search Jimmy Horn spring ball interview at Colorado. And he's got a good sense of humor. And like you said, he's a guy that people are just going to want to naturally follow here.
Yeah. And I think, as a receiver, he's not a very big guy, but he's one of the fastest guys on the team. Got tremendous ball skills and fantastic hands, and really has a knack for twisting defensive backs around and getting open out there. So he's a guy I would venture to guess at this early point that he's probably the first guy that Shedeur is looking for when he comes up to the line of scrimmage. Is where's Jimmy Horn. And they've developed that kind of a chemistry and connection. And I think it's going to be who was the kid in 2016 who every year he could run like a race car, but couldn't catch the ball?
Devin Ross.
Devin Ross. Yeah. He's going to be what Devin Ross could have been with that speed, because he's going to be open, and he's going to be open behind guys a lot.
Yeah, we were just gushing about Dylan Edwards. Jimmy Horn Jr. ran the same 40 during winter testing, a 4.38. So. And didn't talk about it near as much. So we're going to do this, William, and we got to kind of do these together, and I'm going to explain why. But
well, I don't know. That's it, isn't it? There's nobody else that we didn't talk about on this team. I don't know. I guess we got to talk about some guys that weren't highly rated that surprised us. Is that where we are now in the?
Well, the reason we're going to do number 2 and number 1 on the 2023 Top Ups Countdown together is because we've talked about both of these guys so much. In this context, I think we need to talk about it in terms of what our voting criteria was. I voted Travis Hunter number 1 on my list because I think he is the most talented football player on this team. And the fact that he's going to play both ways is he's going to have an immense impact on this program. But I also get why you and Brian both had him too, because you had Shedeur Sanders number 1. And you can tell me if my theory on this is wrong, but I'd assume that you guys both had him number 1 because you view that as the most important position, or am I wrong there?
I think you're wrong on that for me personally.
Wow,
and
okay.
I was going to say, because I've always heard Brian say that the starting quarterback's the number 1 guy, because that's what he is.
He wasn't in Boulder the last couple of years, though.
No, that's for sure. But I'm going to push back a little bit because I think Shedeur Sanders is a better football player than Travis Hunter. Yeah, I said it. There it is. And I say that based on what they've produced at the college level. And I think Shedeur Sanders he is a phenomenal college quarterback. If he's more than that, we'll see one way or the other. But he is. Let me preface this by saying I'm pretty jaded by the quarterback and play that we've watched for the last 10 years. But watching him play the quarterback position is glorious. It's like watching a maestro, it's like watching, when he can see the field, he understands his offense, he can get the ball to his guys, he can run, he can throw, he just really does it all. And I think it's selling him short to automatically say Travis Hunter's a better football player, better athlete. I don't know. How do you define the term athlete, who can run faster, whatever? But, and I'm not denigrating Travis Hunter in any way, shape, or form, because he is one of the true phenomenal talents in the entire country. But I think Shedeur Sanders is a better football player so far in their careers, and he's proven it. And it's like, okay, there was this funny video, cracked me up, of Coach Prime teaching Peyton Manning how to play defensive back. I don't know if you saw that or not, and Shedeur was out throwing the ball for him. Quite clearly, Deion Sanders is a far better athlete than Peyton Manning, right? But Peyton Manning's just as good a football player, and just as dominant at his position as Deion Sanders was at his position. So you see what I'm saying? The difference in how one can be as good a football player as the other, and be very different types of talents at different types of positions. I think Shedeur Sanders is a phenomenal, fantastic quarterback. And so I voted for him in that spot because I think he's the best football player on this team.
Yeah. I mean, I had Shedeur Sanders number 2 on my list, so it's not like I'm going to sit here and really debate you a whole lot. I mean, I think it is a debate. I think you could have either of these two guys number 1 on your list. If there's ever been a year, William, I think a 1A, 1B situation would be applicable. I think this would probably be the year. One of the things I do want to throw out there with Travis Hunter is the fact that he was never healthy. He was never anywhere close to being healthy last year at Jackson State. That, if you watch the documentary on Amazon Prime, I mean, that ankle was pretty gnarly looking like that.
Yeah.
He was playing at what, like 60%, last year. So, and I go back to that one snap at cornerback prior to the spring game where, I mean, Travis Hunter hadn't taken a rep at that position. Coach Prime puts him there, and it was textbook. I mean, there's been some really good corners that have come through Colorado. His just natural ability as a corner reminds me the most, not maybe body type, but like just naturally roll out of bed, I'm an amazing corner, is Jimmy Smith, who was just so natural at the position. Now he's a bigger guy than Travis is right now, but Jimmy went on to play in the NFL for a long time, and Colorado's had some other corners, but just that natural roll out of bed. I mean, that I haven't seen that out of another corner at Colorado.
Yeah, and the two guys that come to my mind, I'm an older guy, is Chris Hudson, number 1, and Deion Figures is the other one. Have that natural ability. And again, I please do not misunderstand that I am not putting down Travis Hunter in any way, shape, or form, because I think he's fantastic and an amazing talent. I'm just saying, at the two different positions, I just think there's an argument to be made that Shedeur Sanders is the best player on this team because he, in his position, is as dominant as we expect Hunter to be as well. So I just think it's not an obvious thing. And then we go back and forth, I'm not trying to change your mind. You're not going to change my mind because I put some thought into this. I am just super impressed with Shedeur Sanders, watching him in every aspect of being a quarterback. And one of them is that intangible sort of, I'm the leader of this team. And you don't got to say it, because if you got to say it, you ain't it. Right. Mm-hmm. And he is the leader of his team, and you see it in the videos. And the other thing is that both of these guys bring to the table that level of leadership that lifts guys up around them. In terms of his personality and just watching him interact with other guys, the guy Travis Hunter reminds me of is Sal Ness, who, when he was a quarterback and was a good friend, and we worked summer together and everything else. Sal was that kind of electric guy you just like to be around. Okay, and I'll say it because one reason you like to be around because you're 19 and women gravitate to him. You like that, right? But he's just sort of that. he just brings everybody with him. Everybody knows Travis Hunter is a superior talent, but he brings everybody with him, and he goes in and plays basketball in the pickup center and talks to people and just sort of has that. And I know I'm not articulating well what it is I'm trying to say. I guess you kind of had to know Sal, you kind of had to know Travis to understand what I mean, but they just are superior people, for lack of a better word, and I think that both he and Shedeur bring that kind of natural leadership. Shedeur Sanders grew up from the time he was in a crib, learning football theory from the best, right? How do you read a defense? How do you look off a corner? It's like, who's going to teach you better how to beat a cornerback than Deion Sanders, right? And so I couldn't be more excited to have about the two guys at the top of this list. And I can't think of any time, in the last 10, 15 years that we've had two guys at the top of the list like these two guys.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, again, putting things in perspective, like if last year at this time I said, a year from now when we finish up the 2023 Top Ups Countdown, you're going to have a former 4-star blue chip quarterback. You're going to have the top-ranked cornerback recruit from the previous two cycles, not just this past one or the year before, but the last two. I mean, we're very much glass half full type people, William.
Right.
But I mean, there's no way we could have ever envisioned this happening.
Well, and I go back to this, and I don't know. This 3-win thing, man. Obviously, it's under my skin and it sticks. But Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter and Deion Sanders, these are not dudes that lose. They don't lose, man.
Yeah.
At anything, ever. So anybody looking at these guys, Sal Sunseri, man, Kelly, Lewis, these are not people who lose. These are not people who fail at what they do. And they're all in Boulder. I was thinking back to how negative and how ugly it was at the end of last season, and who's going to come in to coach this team, and is it going to be just another run of the mill guy to coach somewhere else? And nobody could have done this the way it's happened except Deion Sanders.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons is nobody else could have brought these two dudes. Nobody, and so it's stunning to me to see where we are on, July 30th versus where we were on January 1st. It's mind blowing, quite frankly. And to have think about this for a second. Here we are at the top of our top 40 debating which one of these fantastic, phenomenal, amazing players is number one, right? Instead of it being obvious.
Yeah.
And there's a good debate to be had. It's not just lip service,
It's been pretty obvious around Colorado most years, without question.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And then then you can get into so many layers of like, okay, could you also vote on the criteria that, okay, who's going to hurt the team more if they happen to get injured? And I don't want to talk about injuries, but like, you've got a lot of skill guys.
Yeah.
You don't have another Shedeur Sanders in this football team right now. And Ryan Staub and Casey Weissman might be good quarterbacks down the road, but they're freshmen right now. Right.
And I think nobody's more afraid. I think everybody's, you got that tingly sense of, oh my God, I hope nothing happens to this guy more than anybody else that I've just,
we'll knock on. I'm knocking on everything in here. So don't come after me.
I can't remember anybody for a long time that critical. I guess in a different sort of sense, the guy in 2016 was the quarterback.
Cepho
Lufau, and we didn't know going into the season whether we're going to have him or not.
Yeah,
that foot injury, and he ended up being the difference. And so Shedeur, I think. Another reason why I have Shedeur first, I guess maybe that goes back to that position being the number one guy. If you got that guy, you can win games, man. And Cepho didn't even, nobody could ever say Cepho was a pure passer and a great passer, but my God, again, that was a dude that don't lose. He refused to lose. And so having those guys, it just, there's no way for me to overstate the level of excitement and legitimate excitement that people should have about CU football right now. And, if you're one of those people out there going, well, I'm going to keep my expectations low so I don't get disappointed. Let it go, man. Let it go. Let yourself be free. Roll with the sunshine.
Yeah, but I mean, if you think they're going to go 12-0, though, then
no,
I'm sorry,
no.
but you're probably going to be a little bit disappointed.
But I don't think anybody's talking about that. But I think winning 6 or 7 games is seems to me like a no-brainer for this group.
Again, I think this is the best Top Buffs countdown we've ever done. One other thing we should mention here before we close out, William, is that they're not able to accomplish this if Todd Solomon, Rick George, and Phil DiStefano don't create a pilot program to be able to bring in guys from the transfer portal, because this would have been impossible a year ago. And so that's one other facet that really needs to be talked about. And I think it's easy to forget that because of all the excitement around Coach Prime. But you got to remember that, there was CU brass that took a lot of criticism in a lot of cases, rightfully so, but they stepped up and they got it fixed.
Well, thank God, and Todd Solomon was the right guy at the right time. And Jesus, I'm at a loss for words to think about. I kind of got tight in my chest there thinking about what if we didn't get him, or what if the old guy was still there, and so just having that right person at the right time at the top is making all the difference. And so when it's always been my experience, and I'm getting to be old now, 58, but when things go right, it's the product of a lot of things going right. Okay. A lot of little things behind the scenes going right, and all the way up and down through the various ranks of an organization. And they're all kind of coming together, it feels like right now, and I don't know, even the timing of the conference thing, to be getting it done before camp, feels like it's the right time and it's done. And, I was worried about it. Where are we going to land? Where are we going to wind up? We're going to be stuck with CSU, man, for God's sakes. So it's all kind of playing out as well as I think it could have done. And so, we'll knock on wood and cross our fingers. And I think, what I would take away from this top 40, if you've been watching all this, if you've been listening to us blather back and forth with each other, is be excited, man, because there's some talent on this team.
Yeah. You laid out a lot there, William. It is. There's so many layers of what Colorado's gone through the last 20 years. I was doing one of my radio spots last week, and they're like, "What happened to Colorado football?" And I'm like, "We're gonna have to skip. I'm gonna have to come back after break because there's." And I just started rattling off things really quickly. I mean, it's been unbelievable what CU fans have had to endure outside of 2016, really dating back to 2001, because late during the Gary Barnett tenure, that was tough times to be a CU fan too. And so, there's no fan base out there that deserves to enjoy success more than Colorado's does right now, because even Kansas is more competitive now, and they've always had the basketball side of things. Colorado, they deserve to Colorado fans deserve to enjoy some success here going forward.
Yeah, I didn't go to business school. I went to law school like an idiot. But I would think that looking at CU football would be an interesting organizational study in failure, because it failed at every single level and aspect
at different times. Yeah.
Thing. Yeah. Over the course of the last 20 years, it has failed in every single possible way. And you could really pick this thing apart. And why did it, how could what Bill McCartney so what Bill McCartney built and put us in the top 5 in the country. I believe literally one of the top 5 programs in the country at that time. And that didn't come apart overnight, because it started to slip almost right off the bat with Neuheisel, and then Barnett brought a little bit back, but there were, if you couldn't have seen it at the time, but looking back, you could certainly see the problems and the cracks in the foundation. As far back as Gary Barnett. And then it was just a succession of horrors, man. You know, a judge I was in front of a couple of weeks ago referred to the defense counsel argument as, well, that's a parade of horribles. and I was standing there going, hey, let me tell you about a parade of horribles.
That's good.
You know,
That should be the slogan for Colorado football before Deion Sanders got to Boulder.
Yeah, and that's why I always sort of like made a face whenever somebody's talked about a bandwagon fans and see, ain't no bandwagon fans. Well, there are, there are now, but we're not gonna knock them because God bless them, welcome back.
Yeah,
but by the end of last year, there was nobody left on any bandwagons, man. If you were just dog stupid. All of us are just dog stupid and stubborn. I don't know what our problem is. Somebody ought to have done a psychological study on what kind of a dumbass would still be a fan of this program after the last 10 years.
I mean, your wife almost gave you an ultimatum at one point, didn't she?
Well, she said, look, this is not good for you and it's not fun. Yeah. Why? We're not going up there because, and she said, we're not going up there because it doesn't do good things for you and you are not a good person coming out of it. And I was like, wow, that's really a wake up, Yeah. So,
well, yeah, it's good you hung on long enough though to get to this side of it where we're doing, a top 40 Buffs countdown with guys like Travis Hunter on it.
Right. And I said to her too, I was like, I don't know what else to do. I've been a Buff since 1983.
Yeah.
I don't know where it's like there's an old movie, Officer and a Gentleman. And the guy wants to be a Navy pilot and the guy's trying to get him to quit. He says, I got nowhere else to go. What are we going to do? Be a CSU fan? Give up football? Be a Nebraska fan? For Christ's sakes, I'd rather freaking slit my wrists or throat or whatever. But this is who I am, man. Just
like college football will, like I get that, like a lot of people get turned off by the portal and NIL and all that stuff, but college football is as popular now as it's ever been.
Right.
And it's because it's a unique experience where you have a connection to a place that is beyond. I'm sorry, you could be a diehard Broncos fan, but you didn't spend 4 or 5 years in a lot of cases going to school there, or even if you didn't go to the University of Colorado, you probably grew up going to football games in Boulder and seeing Ralphie run, and you have this connection that you just can't replicate when you're talking about professional sports.
Yeah, and all those guys up at CU, even though many of them are there for the first time ever, they're all going into Northern Library and they're all going into Sewell Hall and they're all going into the bookstore on the hill and they're all going into the same buildings we all went into and walked on the same ground we all walked on, and in some cases for younger guys, same professors and whatever, and it's a shared connection. Like those Bronco dudes, I don't got no connection to them. I'm not allowed inside Dove Valley, right? I mean, I don't have any connection to those guys, anything whatsoever. So it is a shared thing. Even when they transfer in, they still become a part of, I've been in that weight room up there in the Champion Center. I've been on that field inside the indoor playing field. I've been on that practice field. And it's just, I worn the damn uniform, man. I ain't ever worn a Bronco uniform. I got my old Freedom Bowl jersey hanging in the closet even now. I look like a jackass if I put it on, but
you broke that out for our CU Sports Jeopardy in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic. Do you remember that?
Did I really?
Yeah.
Did I wear it?
You did. Yeah. And actually, I've been doing some throwback Thursday features on buffstampede.com. I think I'm going to throw back up some of those CU Sports Jeopardy shows. I'm trying to remember. You beat Patrick Godosi, right? Isn't that who you battled on that?
I think I lost, didn't I?
Oh, you lost. Okay.
I can't remember. Those were a lot of fun.
Yeah, that was fun. They didn't get a whole lot of views. I think it was honestly people were just like, there wasn't sports going on, so people were just kind of doing other stuff. They were binging Netflix, the Tiger King at that point.
Yeah, good Lord. Yeah. But that, even that's like, we've got, man, you and I got a decade of shared times going out to high schools and looking at these kids and watching them go through the program and seeing who made it, who didn't, and that's why college football, it's like, and there's no marching bands in the NFL. I mean, that may sound goofy, but it's important to me, man. The
Yeah.
way they march down the hill and the way they play down there. I don't know. It's just something that's it's almost childlike in a way. It's like I said about going back to the Big 12. It's like going home. I go up there to Folsom Field 5, 6 times a year. It's like going home. And all the people I know. Hey, there's Uncle Jimmy, the weird one. And there's the old marching band sitting over there, always playing the songs we like or whatever, and the wire and the sound system, and
Yeah.
we all got a lot of shared trauma. I guess I was gonna say
Yeah.
history, but
Yeah.
we got a lot of shared trauma, and so that I think was what makes us all a family. And even when guys are brand new, there's also something about the whole commitment process where in the NFL you're drafted and that's who you go to, right? Whereas in college you got to be convinced to come here,
Mm-hmm.
and you make an active choice to be a CU Buffalo, right? And then it's like, hey, hooray, that guy picked us, man, hooray. Like this kid Charles Lester, he picked us. He just didn't know it yet. We'll get there, but it's just something that's entirely different from the NFL pro game, And even though these kids are transferring and there's NIL and everything else, they're not mercenaries, man. They're college kids and they're going to go out and chase girls and like they're watching the video with Chauncey and Coach Prime, and he talked about, look, man, you know, don't let the rest of your life be dictated by 5 minutes of pleasure right now.
Mm-hmm.
Get your brain right and do the right thing. And he has to say that because they're dumbass, 18, 19, 20-year-old kids like I was at CU, like I was in the military. And we've all been there. We all relate to it.
And you have to understand that their brains aren't fully developed yet. And
yeah.
again, I would imagine almost all of us did some stupid stuff before we turned 25.
Oh my God. Before 25.
Even afterward?
Well, if we're gonna talk about my life history, I got out of the Navy at 28, and I was an idiot to do it, and I did it because I was young and I didn't have the experience, And I look back now, and at 28, I was like, God, I got to do another 10 years of this. That's forever. Now 58. Now I'm like, what an idiot. That kid's an idiot, man. Do your next 10 and be done. But you don't think like that at that age.
But that's why Coach Prime is so perfect
right.
to be coaching at this level.
Right.
He says that I'm a need to be needed person, and
right.
He could have picked a better program in that sense to come coach at, because I think he gets energy off people's enthusiasm because of what he's doing. And I think that kind of fuels him a little bit.
And I think that's what people miss about him too. I think they see the flash and the sizzle, and they don't realize the depth of the man. And so when you see that conversation of him talking to those guys and bringing in a Chauncey Billups, who they still remember as a professional athlete, and he takes that time with Chauncey Billups to talk about not football, but life decisions. That's who you want your son to be with, that guy. Not some idiot that's like, well, football 24/7. Let's get your life right, and then football will be right.
Usually, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, usually I go into camp just a little bit pessimistic, and then being around the football team every day, just feeling the enthusiasm of folks as the season gets closer.
Right.
I'll be honest, sometimes my win prediction goes up a little bit. This year, like, the optimism has already started, and camp hasn't even kicked off yet, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah, and I think part of that is because of the access we've been granted through all the videos and such, which is entirely different from anything in the last 15 years. And this is what I've been saying every year is put your program out there and you grow it,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what they do here is like, let us all see it. We're the dudes that pay the money and come in and show up and have the enthusiasm. Give us a bone to chew on, man.
Yeah.
And they get it and they see that. Whereas this top secret, not going to show you anything. And we know this team. We know these players. We've watched them. We've watched their personalities. We've had more access in the last 8 months than we've had in the last 8 years. And so I'm far more invested in this team. I honestly God didn't give a damn about this team, at the end of December. And now I know these guys, not having met any one of them at all face to face, but seeing their personalities through all these videos and stuff, I know these dudes, and I'm pulling for them, and I'm on their side, and I see the depth of what's going on up there, and I look at these coaches. I watch Coach Mo and his staff, and they're fantastic and phenomenal, and just watch what they're doing up there, and it's hard not to be really excited. It's hard. You see which guys are taking leadership, Lichtenhan's really taking leadership of that offensive line, and Shane Coax is taking leadership of that defensive line. And, it's hard not to be excited. And again, they brought in a bunch of guys to this program who all want to be here. And there seems to be collectively, again, doing this top 40, there seems to be collectively, most of these guys got a chip on their shoulder and something to prove. Is why they came here. Is almost every last guy I can think of. Obviously, Shador and Travis don't have anything to prove, but almost every other guy that's come in here has got a chip on their shoulder and something to prove, and that is a potent medication, I guess, to get people to push extra and give you more.
Yeah. Well, William, we could talk all day about this stuff. Obviously, people can hear the passion in our voice, but we got still some time here before the season does kick off. Hopefully, we can find some time in your schedule to record a couple podcasts during preseason camp, because I'd imagine, again, continuing with the access, they're going to maybe not show everything because you've got to have some semblance of secrecy leading up to the season. But I think people will continue to be engaged throughout August. And so I think there's going to be a whole lot to talk about here the next few weeks.
Yeah, for sure. And as we get through camp, positions will start to iron themselves out as to who's number one and all the way down the depth chart. And also, it still remains to be seen what Lewis and Kelly do with their schemes on both sides of the ball and who fits in where and what they're doing. So that'll be interesting to watch. Further developments, I guess, in the conference alignment situation. I know the question is probably first and foremost on every Buff fan's mind: where will the CSU Lambs land? Right. So plenty of things I think that we can address moving forward, but we'll see a lot of this top 40 play out as to who winds up starting and what the offense looks like. And as by the time we get to the first game, I think we'll have an idea of who the initial stars will be. And I say initial because one thing that's been here's another thing that is why people love college football, right? You got a bunch of young dudes and you start the season, and I've always been surprised and kind of amazed every single year, every single team I followed closely. You're starting 22 in game 1 is very different in game 11, game 12 at the end of the season. It becomes very different, and you make changes and guys fall by the wayside and other guys explode and become a guy. So we'll be looking at a very different team halfway through the season. We'll be looking at a very different team towards the end of camp than what we think we're looking at right now. So it'll be interesting to watch all that develop and see who does what.
Yeah, you definitely can't rank 40 scholarship guys, the vast majority of which have never played the program you cover and not make mistakes in there. So at no point in the past of doing this countdown have we ever claimed that this is going to be, you should write this down in pen. This is just an exercise to really go through, the roster and get a feel for where the team is. And it is one of the better exercises in terms of getting a feel for what a team's ceiling and floor is, honestly.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think we'll clarify a lot of this by the time we get TCU game in terms of who ends up in the top 2 of every position and what have you, and what our defense looks like. And, we're going to have 2 edge guys, or we're going to have something else and what have you, and who they are and what have you. So I think by TCU game, we'll have a much clearer view of this roster. And then, 5, 6 games in, 12 games in, we'll have an even more developed view of what we have here. But I'm very optimistic, and I feel very positive on almost every aspect. One other thing we haven't mentioned so far in any of these videos is it's very clear to me that these guys are being taught how to play the game. And it may seem obvious to everybody that that's what coaching is, teach them how to play the game. But if you've watched CU football the last 10 years, they don't know how to play the game, man. They individual guys out on the field don't seem to understand situations, if it's late in the game and it's 3rd and 8 and, you're on offense, you get out of bounds. If a ball, what do you do in this situation? What do you do in that situation? And all those little things we're not taught. They're all going to get taught this year, and it's all going to show on the field when guys know what to do in individual situations, and they didn't previously.
And a big difference there is who came in number 1 on this countdown. Shedeur Sanders is now your quarterback in Boulder, which is why you and Brian both voted him there. And so anxious to, again, keep talking as we go through this whole process. It's been fun. Everybody out there that made it to the end of the show, because we've gone a long time here. Kudos to you. Hopefully this wasn't I don't know what the right word is, but we went very in depth on this countdown, and so hopefully people enjoyed that. Yeah,
well, it was a lot of fun, and I really enjoy the fact that we get good chemistry, and we're able to just kind of feed off each other and go. Sometimes we go off on segues, and I hope it's interesting. I tend to go a lot into the history, the last 30, 40 years of CU football, and bring out things that I remember, what have you, and my personal experiences coaching and playing the game, and hopefully that's fun. I don't know.
Yeah, we've gotten good feedback on these shows, so I think it is, and I think that you would have made it through the last 20 years if you didn't have that good memory to remember some of the glory days, to know what CU football is capable of. So we're going to end the show here, but William, let's do a show during camp, and again, thanks everybody out there for tuning in.